Beneath the endless blue of the Pacific Ocean, where the horizon stretches farther than the eye dares to wander, lies a chain of islands that once belonged to a kingdom unlike any other. Today, we call it Hawaii. To the traveler, it is paradise, with golden sands, turquoise waters, and volcanic mountains clothed in mist. But centuries before the world came to know it as a vacation dream, Hawaii was a forbidden kingdom, ruled by gods, guarded by kapu laws, and forever marked by the tragedy of its fall. This is the story of a kingdom that rose from isolation, flourished with culture and spirit, and was ultimately swept away by the tides of conquest, ambition, and betrayal. Imagine standing upon the cliffs of Oahu, long before the sails of foreign ships pierced the horizon. The air is alive with chants in honor of the gods. The beating of pahu drums echo through valleys, and the people, bronzed by the sun, live according to the sacred kapu system. It is a world where the divine and human intertwine, where every action, whether eating, fishing, or even walking upon the wrong path, can bring either prosperity or punishment from forces unseen. The Hawaiian Islands were a kingdom where life and death were bound tightly to tradition, and where every chief, every ali, claimed descent from the gods themselves. For centuries, Hawaii stood apart from the rest of the world. Cut off by oceans vast and merciless, its people developed a society rich in song, dance, and oral tradition. Their navigators, guided by stars and swells, crossed distances that would terrify even the most daring European sailor. But for all its beauty and resilience, Hawaii was fragile. The arrival of outsiders would change everything. It was in 1778, when Captain James Cook, an English explorer, first set foot upon these shores, that the Forbidden Kingdom began to tremble. To the Hawaiians, Cook seemed almost otherworldly. His ships towered like floating islands, his men clad in fabrics unknown, carrying weapons that roared like thunder and felled trees with a single strike. To the islanders, steeped in prophecy, Cook's arrival seemed to fulfill whispers of the god Lono returning to his people. Cook was welcomed, celebrated, even worshipped. But what began in awe soon turned to suspicion and then to blood. By 1779, during his return to the islands, conflict with the Hawaiians flared. Cook was killed at Kealakekua Bay, his body torn apart according to ritual. For the Hawaiians, it was an act of balance. For the British, it was the loss of their greatest navigator. And yet this moment marked the beginning of Hawaii's end as an untouched world. In the decades that followed, foreign ships came more frequently. American traders, British whalers, missionaries with their scriptures and their burning conviction. With them came goods, ideas, and diseases. The kapu system, which had bound Hawaiian life for centuries, began to strain under the weight of foreign influence. And yet, from this turmoil, one man would rise. Kamehameha, a chief of immense strength and cunning. He was known as Kamehameha the Great. From the rugged valleys of the Big Island, he dreamed of uniting the fractured islands under one rule. Hawaii had long been divided, with chiefs warring for dominance, spilling blood across beaches and ridges. But Kamehameha possessed a vision larger than any before him. With foreign muskets acquired through trade and cannons mounted upon his canoes, he reshaped warfare in the islands. Slowly, island by island, he subdued his rivals. In 1795, at the Battle of Nu'uanu on Oahu, his warriors drove enemy forces up the cliffs until hundreds fell to their deaths in the valley below. It was brutal, but decisive. Kamehameha emerged as the first ruler of a unified Hawaiian kingdom. The kingdom he forged was both ancient and modern. He retained Hawaiian customs and honored the gods, but he also understood the necessity of diplomacy with the outside world. Foreign traders were welcomed, treaties signed, and Hawaii became a crossroads of the Pacific. Under Kamehameha, the islands thrived, but he was only one man, and even the strongest of kings cannot stop the march of time. Kamehameha died in 1819, and with his death, the kingdom entered a new chapter, one marked by upheaval and transformation. His successor, Kamehameha II, inherited not only the throne, but also the growing tension between tradition and change. That same year, in a bold and shocking act, the kapu system was abolished. The sacred laws that had governed Hawaii for centuries were overturned, temples destroyed, idols cast down. Some saw this as liberation, others as sacrilege. But the old gods were silent, and the new faiths, carried by missionaries from across the seas, soon filled the void. The missionaries brought more than religion. They introduced schools, literacy, and a written Hawaiian language. They also brought a stern morality that clashed with Hawaiian traditions of sexuality, hula, and celebration. To many chiefs, the new ways promised strength and survival in a world increasingly dominated by foreign powers. But with each passing year, Hawaii's sovereignty grew more fragile. By the mid-19th century, Hawaii was a kingdom in peril. Disease ravaged the native population, reducing it by more than half. Foreign advisors and businessmen gained influence in the royal court. Sugarcane became the new wealth of the islands, but with it came a growing dependence on American and European markets. The kings who followed Kamehameha struggled to balance the preservation of their people with the encroachment of foreign interests. King Kamehameha III granted Hawaii its first constitution in 1840, transforming the kingdom into a constitutional monarchy. It was a move meant to modernize, to appease foreign powers, and to protect sovereignty. But it also gave outsiders a foothold in Hawaiian politics. As the years passed, American settlers and businessmen, many of them sugar planters, tightened their grip on the island's economy. By the late 19th century, the throne of Hawaii passed to Queen Liliʻuokalani, a woman of dignity, strength, and vision. She loved her people deeply, and she saw the danger of the growing foreign influence. In 1891, she became Hawaii's last reigning monarch, and in her heart she carried the hope of restoring the kingdom's independence. She drafted a new constitution that would return power to the Hawaiian people, stripping away the privileges granted to foreign elites. But she never had the chance to enact it. In 1893, American businessmen, backed by the U.S. military, staged a coup. The Queen's palace was surrounded by armed forces, and she was forced to surrender to avoid bloodshed. With sorrow and grace, she yielded her throne, believing that the United States government would restore her authority once the injustice was known. But the restoration never came. Hawaii was declared a republic in 1898, and by 1898, it was annexed to the United States. The Forbidden Kingdom was no more. Yet even in its fall, Hawaii's spirit endured. The songs of the islands, the dances of hula, the stories passed from one generation to another, these survived, carried like embers in the hearts of its people. The Queen herself spent her final years fighting for her people, writing music that still echoes across the islands, a lament for the kingdom that was lost. Today, when travelers walk through Honolulu and visit Iolani Palace, the only royal palace on American soil, they step upon the memory of a kingdom that once held the Pacific in its embrace. The marble halls, the grand staircases, and the portraits of kings and queens remind us of what was and what was taken. But beyond the palace, in the chants of the hula, in the waves crashing upon lava cliffs, and in the spirit of aloha that still breathes through the islands, the Forbidden Kingdom whispers. It whispers of a people who believed their kings descended from the gods. It whispers of battles fought on cliffs, of temples raised to the heavens, of canoes that crossed oceans guided only by stars. And it whispers of betrayal, of outsiders who came with promises but left with sovereignty in their hands. The story of Hawaii is not just the story of an island kingdom. It is the story of many nations, of how contact with the outside world can bring knowledge, wealth, and connection, but also loss, disease, and domination. It is the story of a kingdom that can be both powerful and vulnerable, sacred and fragile, forbidden and yet desired. And so, when the sun sets over Waikiki, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold, one can almost imagine the ghosts of the alii, the ancient chiefs, watching from the mountains. They watch with pride, for their people endure, and with sorrow, for their kingdom was taken. But perhaps, above all, they watch with hope, that the memory of their forbidden kingdom will never be forgotten. For Hawaii was never simply paradise. It was a kingdom, a nation, and a people. And though the crown was stolen, the spirit remains.